My name is Angel. Hi, class. My name is Angel. And basically, I'll be going over the sound and images of words that are introduced in 13 ways of looking at a blackbird. One technique can be ansonance. And basically, ansonance is basically in poetry means the repetition of sounds and vowels, sound of a vowel, more specifically, or just basically giving a non rhyming stress into the poem. One example can be among 20 snowy mountains, the only moving thing isn't the full stanza, but basically the Y in these sounds are present through an E and a short I sound. The mountains can give off like a strong presence and background in the stanza, and giving the word follows, establishing important presence in the poem, giving off two natural figures standing powerful throughout the poem. And it isn't really much, but it kind of does go on to the idea of ansonance. And another example can be the Blackbird world in the autumn winds. It's a little hard to hear, but basically the connecting sounds between the high I and the sound of a short I sounds creates a vocal whirlwind, whirling chant-like sound. The Blackbird world, and basically giving out like the short I in and then winds. One a big one can be imagery. Is thrown out throughout the poem in different stanzas. Like example, like in stanza 3 about the tree, and then about men and women are one. The blackbird, basically giving out a lot of imageries. One example I chose was stanza 6, basically giving saying icicles filled the long window with barbaric glass. The shadow of the blackbird crossed it, and from the mood. Sorry about that. Traced in the shadow and in the starkly cost. It basically just goes on to giving off an ontological symbolism. Ontological does mean nature, and it is connected to our theme. Our theme is going to be nature and simplicity, as Luce and Javid previously explained. And basically, the way I see it is that I see the icicles in the glass as a sense of entrapment and enclosure. I think of it as bars as like a prison, like vertical bars, non-escaped, and basically it could be seen as a blackbird wandering around back and forth, pacing around with no real purpose. But the real play is that this can be seen as an illusion. Instead of the blackbird being trapped in there, it can be seen as the one encaged inside, and dwelling can be the observer. Can be the observers. Basically, the blackbird is instead watching the observer inside of the cage, being trapped in their own mind. And when it goes on saying about the shadow of the blackbird, of course, it could be counted as the shadow of the blackbird, but it could be seen as two ways, creating like a mood, essentially. And the mood can be caused by the shadow, or the mood is the shadow. Like more specifically, the mood is the blackbird just walking around back and forth, and that's what creates the uncertain mood. And either way, in the end, it kind of just shows the observer is the prisoner of their own mind, and this can be a sign of dwelling and reaching our limitation of imagination and our horizon, and basically just basically overall the understanding of nature's simplicity, and uh like I said, we don't really go on with it, and then if we do go on with it, like understanding the full extent of it, the author kind of just says like we're not capable of understanding, or we're not able to handle it, whatever the real reason is. So going on, we're gonna go on to our third. We're gonna go on to our outside source. And according to International Research Journal of Arts and Humanities, it's basically said that the poem does not have a theme or a strong enough theme to be counted as a poem or like a standard poem. The reasons are kind of like giving off like a deconstruction poem discourse, and overall just an outside source, and explains the poem being unstable and non-compacted form of poetry, which basically just means that giving that not having a certain a strong theme to connect it throughout all the stanzas, because every stanza has their own little like I guess theme or like story. And just overall just the article does go on to giving the theory of deconstruction, and it has to do with one clearing one's mind, and basically just giving the idea of looking at life from multiple angles and directions, just not from one certain angle. So just instead of a traditional structural study poem, which is dependent on the century of the poem, each stanza has its own concept, basically giving each stanza a self-centered in its own way. So, and there was a quote in the article that kind of stood out to me. It basically says, "Therefore, it is found that the poem in theme, form, and the structure is the tall talk of flexible aspects of language intermittency." And basically, the quote means is that the person who did the study went through the process of deconstructing the poem and finding there's no central theme into looking into 13 ways of looking at a blackbird. And after reading the article and everything, I kind of see where they're coming from. Every stanza has their own little story. There's no real like I guess there's no like connection. There is a connection. The blackbird is the connection, but that's the only connection from what I see it. And like how the title says, 13 different ways, so it can be connected as that essentially. To wrap things up, is just my final discussion question, which is going to be, which stanza spoke more to you, to the audience, essentially to you guys? Which is the most strongest? Which one stood out the most? Because every stanza, I believe, has its own strong meaning and reason why it was there. And basically, just explain why you believe this is the case, and basically being the theme, being nature and simplicity. And that's pretty much our presentation. There really isn't much. So thank you for hearing us. Thank you to Luce and Gibbet for doing our presentation. And thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed it.